Hi and welcome. This month in Brave Leadership Mastery, we are learning how to build emotional resilience of the brave leader. And this week, what we're going to be going through are the 6 tools that help brave leaders thrive in the face of obstacles. But today, because so many of you found the quick lesson that I gave last week so valuable, that I decided I wanted to give you another quick lesson today. And so what I'm going to do is share with you the first of the 6 tools so that you can get started today. So let's dive in. Conditions and circumstances that arise and that seem insurmountable can be one of the greatest gifts that we receive as brave leaders. They can lead us to our greatest successes, and because they give us this opportunity to realize the potential that's dormant within us. Over 17 years ago, I started studying and analyzing millions of customer decisions and their comments that they made, why they did what they did, and their concerns about what they were doing and what the company was doing. And that has led me to a deep study of human experience. One of the areas of research that has fascinated me for the last at least 10 years now is this part of the research that focuses on positive psychology. And in particular, what is it that helps us shift from thinking about a traumatic or extremely challenging situation? And do we go into post-traumatic stress, or do we go into post-traumatic growth? This has been fascinating for me. You see, about 10 years ago, Dr. Martin Seligman, the founder of positive psychology research, was called by the Pentagon, the top officials there, and they basically wanted to understand that positive psychology is the study of how humans thrive and how they have this experience of thriving, not just surviving. So they wanted Dr. Seligman to come and describe to them and discuss what could be done about PTSD and the suicides that were happening at an alarming rate amongst the soldiers and the veterans. So when Seligman got there, he told the generals that they needed to build an emotionally resilient military. Now, we've been studying emotional resilience this entire month, the whole month of September. And his research actually, and others with him, found that with the right training, post-traumatic growth would actually be more prevalent than post-traumatic stress disorder for people who experienced extreme or serious trauma, including major challenges, not just on the battlefield, but in life or in business. And Seligman and the other researchers actually have unlocked how to build emotional resilience in people prior to facing the situations where they'll be highly stressed, so that they're more likely to experience post-traumatic growth rather than post-traumatic stress disorder. So I've tapped into the research to help CEOs, executives, entrepreneurs, even line-level employees. And in fact, I've actually been to the Pentagon. I've actually trained Navy SEALs, Army Rangers, and others how to use these tools. So the method that I use, or the acronym that I use, is EPOCHS, EPOCHS. And each of these represent a tool that you can use to help yourself lean more toward post-traumatic growth as opposed to post-traumatic stress. Which means if you're faced with a challenging situation or an obstacle that seems insurmountable, you can actually grow as a result of that experience and become a better, stronger, more thriving person. Now, if you think about epoch is defined as a period in time in history or a person's life, and it's typically marked by notable events and particular characteristics. We talked last week about how you're on this hero journey of growth and transformation, not just to achieve a goal, but the inner transformation that happens for you as you achieve a goal. So these would mark major change points in your life. That's why I love to call this an epic. And the model itself is the EPOCHS model. So let's look at, there are going to be 6 different resilience building tools, and I'm going to share with you the first one today. The first one, the E, represents emotional awareness. When you understand what you feel and why you feel what you feel, you are emotionally aware. Emotional awareness is the key to post-traumatic growth. Because if you understand why you're feeling, what you're feeling, and why you're feeling it, you can make meaning out of it. You can use it to benefit yourself. You can use it as a teaching point, as a learning point for yourself and for others. You can use it to connect with others in ways you couldn't connect before. So you want to be able to identify what you feel. And I do this in a few different ways. One is you want to actually do some reading and understand what different emotions actually are. As an example, just a real simple one here. What's the difference between empathy and compassion? I had a discussion on Facebook with someone about this earlier this week. Empathy is about feeling what another person feels. Compassion is different. Although we get them confused quite frequently in our common language, compassion is not just feeling what another feels, but it is the motivation to act to help the person. In other words, you go into this pro-social behavior of trying to do some good to relieve the pain that they're feeling. So that's the difference between empathy and compassion. But we could look at anger and frustration. We could look at anxiety and worry. What are the differences? And so the more you know about how to define these different emotions, you understand what each emotion is, it allows you to begin to separate them. And what researchers have found, which is fascinating, is that when you can actually call an emotion by name, it actually becomes less impactful on you. So if you can actually recognize that I'm feeling frustrated, I'm feeling angry, I'm feeling anxiety, I'm feeling worried, and you can separate those different emotions because you understand that they are different, you will actually deal with all of them in a better way. The other part to this is that, and this is an exercise I take people through, understanding where the emotion arises in your body. You see, emotions are happening all the time in our bodies. Emotions are a chemical and mechanical process with the cells and how they're processing certain chemicals that are being absorbed by them. And when we feel an emotion, that's the conscious awareness of an emotion happening in our body. When we feel an emotion, we can actually say, I am feeling angry, I am feeling happy, I'm feeling sad, whatever it may be. So what I often do is I help people to understand when they feel an emotion, just even if it's unpleasant, bear with it for a moment. Don't be afraid of the emotion. If it's an unpleasant emotion, it's just information. So allow yourself to feel that emotion and feel where you feel it in your body. What size is it? What shape do you imagine it is? What color is it? Is it warm or is it cool? Is it hot? Is it smooth to the touch or is it rough and jagged? So think about those characteristics. How large is it? How small is it? Once you begin to understand these characteristics, and some people may say, well, I don't feel emotions that way. Okay, well, experiment with it next time you feel an emotion. Just play with it a little bit and see, do you recognize any of these characteristics? Many people with practice can begin to identify the different characteristics of a particular emotion, where they feel it, what it feels like, how intense it is, all of those things. And the more they get familiar with it, the less it scares them. And so when it comes up, they're like, oh, I know what that is. And it doesn't mean they don't feel it, but it means they know how to cope when they're feeling it. They know how to rationally think even though they are feeling a particular emotion. So that's very important. So knowing what you feel, knowing where it is in your body, and knowing what to call it, that's the first step of emotional awareness, or the first few steps of emotional awareness. Now, the other part to this, which is critical as well, is to be able to identify the thoughts or the conditions in your environment that trigger that feeling. And I've gone through an exercise and taken clients through exercises in the past where I help them to recognize when they have a feeling, to pause for a moment, and then to think back to what was the thought I had just before that feeling arose. What was in my environment or around just before that feeling arose? And as they develop this awareness of the commonality of the environment or the thoughts that come up just before they have a feeling, they begin to recognize the triggers. When they recognize the triggers, they can then evaluate what happened before that trigger, what brought up that trigger. And they continue to kind of move back in time. And this can take days or weeks or maybe even months, depending on how far back you want to go into that cycle. But what happens for them is that they can stop the trigger many steps before it ever gets to feeling that emotion that's so unpleasant that they haven't been able to handle before, that obstacle that comes up and stops them in their tracks. So again, this is E, this is emotional awareness. Now, I'd love to go through the rest of them, but I don't have time right here. So in our class this week, in the Brave Leadership Mastery class. We're going to talk about all 6 elements of the EPICS model. I'll revisit emotional awareness. So if you've heard this, you'll get another teaching that it'll really cement it for you so you get it clear. And then we'll go through the P, the O, the C, the H, and the S in the EPICS model. Now, if you want to join us, go to braveleadershipmastery.com. That's braveleadershipmastery.com. And that'll take you to our Facebook page where you can enroll and you can become a Brave Leadership Master. If you're not ready for it, no big deal. Hang it on the group page. Share this group page with others. Invite them in, comment, ask questions, because I'm here to serve you. That's why I'm here. I love doing this, and I know that's benefiting many of you who are ready just to learn a little bit right now. Again, if you want to join us, it's www.braveleadershipmastery.com. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you on this page here.